Oh, right. Welcome to Pro Football. First 50 years where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. Especially if you're going to go back in time and check out a game from like the 1920s or the 1930s. I mean, yeah, you can go online, find a box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, no newsflash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos here, nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, very entertaining game. Battle of a couple winning teams from the 1959 season. The Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns at Cleveland Stadium, November 22nd, 1959. Both these teams both had winning records. How they got there was basically the exact opposite. I'll show you that in just a minute. But this wound up being a very, very entertaining game. This game here kind of, certainly don't want to say, it did not knock the Browns out of the running, but really put a damper on their, chances of winning the Eastern Division title. And I'll tell you what, that Bobby Lane, I'll tell you what, it's just, well, what, just, there. Boy, you guy's just a winner. I'll tell you, just an absolute winner. You just look back at it, it's like, man, the Lions kept Tobin Rote and got rid of Bobby Lane. Might have been a little bit of an error here. So let's pull up the Cleveland Browns schedule here first. Now, neither one of these teams did very well in the exhibitions, but once again, there's always the two ways of looking at it, Share screen. Here we go. Of course, not, obviously. There we go. Cleveland Browns, 1959. Now, everybody's there trying out rookies. Some players are injured and all of that. So, it's, once again, exhibition. It's exhibition. But if you're playing the game, hey, you want to win it. But if you don't, it's only the exhibition season. I said, especially because some of these teams are, just almost overhauling their team from the year before, like the Eagles. Eagles really, really overhauled their roster from the 1958 season when they only won 2 games. So, they brought in an influx of a whole rookies and other guys from other teams, and, they really turned things around. So, it's obviously the exhibition, it's always tough to judge. But as you'll see here, the Browns, did not do very well. Matter of fact, they were actually 1-4 going into their final preseason game or exhibition, and then they beat the Bears. So the Browns finished 2-4. Now, interestingly, the Bears in his final exhibition game, the Bears actually were 5-0 going into their finale, and this wound up being this was a very entertaining game. I did a video on this one here, but you see the Browns were just 2-4. But once again, that was exhibition. But these two teams did the exact opposite. How they wind up although they both had winning records, that they got there in the exact opposite way. Now, with the Browns, you'll see. Actually, the Browns lost to the Steelers 2 times. They lost to the Giants. The Browns lost to the Giants twice and the Steelers twice. That was 4 of their 5 losses. And then their other one here was a tough one to the 49ers. But after 8 weeks of the season, the Browns were 6-2. So we go right. They were 1-2, but then they won 5 in a row. So it was 6-2. They were 6-2. The Giants were 6-2. So with 4 weeks left to go in the season, the Browns and the Giants had identical records, both at 6-2. With 4 games left to go, then they had this key pivotal game coming up at Yankee Stadium on December 6th, which really didn't turn out to be any type of any type of a contest because the Giants just totally blew them out. But after they beat the Redskins, they were 6-2. 4 games left. It's anybody's race. But as you see here, what the Browns did, the Browns fell apart. They lost, spoiler alert, I do apologize. A very good game, entertaining game. They lost a tough 1-point loss here to the Steelers, thanks to Bobby Lane. Then they had another tough 1-point loss here to the 49ers. Then they still had a slim chance. They had a win against the Giants, and then they had a win against the Eagles. And as you see, that did not happen. And if the Browns did win their final 2 games, they had to hope that the Giants would lose their final 2 games, which that didn't happen either. So the Browns finished 7-5, tied with the Eagles for second place. So pretty much for the Browns, when you go to the championship game from 50 to 55 and you're back in a championship game at 1957 once again, 7-5 is a little bit of a disappointment, especially when you're 6-2 and you lose 3 of your final 4. So, they had a winning record. They certainly had a chance to win the division, but it was not meant to be. Anyway, as I said, they wound up tied with the Eagles. Both were 7-5. Now, the Steelers were in third place. They were 6-5-1. Let me show you how they got there. And once again, the same thing. They did not have a particularly good exhibition season either. But once again, it was only exhibition. As I said, all of these neutral site games, they played one home game against the Browns. So they played the Browns 3 times during the season. They played the Cardinals 2 times in preseason. Then they played the Cardinals. So they actually played the Cardinals 4 times, the Steelers, during the season. They played a total of 18 games, 4 of them against the Cardinals. It was like a baseball season or something. But you'll notice a lot of neutral site games. Like they played the Cardinals in Austin, Texas. Then they played the Bears in Houston, Texas. Then they played the Colts in the Orange Bowl. Then they played the Cardinals at St. Louis, Missouri at Busch Stadium, where, interestingly, though, the Chicago Cardinals would be taking up residence in the 1960 season because they moved out of Chicago after the 59 season. In 1960, they became the St. Louis Cardinals, right? And they played in Busch Stadium. Then he played the Green Bay Packers in Bloomington, Minnesota at Metropolitan Stadium, where the Vikings would take up residence in 1961. So they had a lot of neutral site games. But as you see, they were 2-4 as well, too. This one right here, they got blown out by the Bears. So nothing super spectacular, right? But once again, it was only exhibition. But the same thing that happened pretty much to the Steelers in 1958 happened to them in 1959. So once the season started, they look good. They wind up beating the Browns. You start off by beating the Browns 17-7. Man, you're off and running, but not necessarily. Right? They would lose 2, win another one, then they would lose 2 and tie 1. So they were, what was this? Were they 2-4-1? After 7 games, so basically, they didn't even. And this year, this tie was a little bit embarrassing because they actually tied the Detroit Lions at home, and the Lions only won 3 games all year. So this was a little bit of an embarrassment. But by the time they lost to the Cardinals, and they gave up 45 points to the Cardinals. By the time they lost to the Cardinals, they were 2-4, and you can almost, halfway through the season, you got 4 losses already. You can almost kiss your division winning hopes goodbye. As I said, then they tied here. But then, they wound up winning 4 of the final 5 games. And the only one loss that they had was away. They lost to the Chicago Bears by 6 points at Wrigley Field. Now, the Bears finished 8-4. The Bears, I think, won their final 7 games in a season. So this right here, lose by 6 points to the Bears on the road. So when the Bears won the final 7, that's nothing to be ashamed at there. But we'll see right here. They won 4 of their final 5 games, and they finished 6-5-1. They did the same exact thing in 1958. I think in 1958 they were unbeaten. I think that maybe they had a tie in there. And let's take a look here. 1958. I think they were 6-0-1 in their final 7 games. Yeah. They 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They were 6. Their final 7 games of the 58 season, they were 6-0-1. So, I mean, it's only the final 7 games. It wasn't the whole season or anything like that. But you can almost make a case that the final 7 games of the 58 season, the Pittsburgh Steelers might have been the best team in professional football. And just what they did, once again, they lost this game here, they lost this, they won this one, and they started off, 1-4. This year, in 1959, they were 2-4. So right out of the gate, after the first 5 games of the season, they almost were out of the running for the Eastern Division in 1958. But you see, once again, right? 6-0-1, the final 7 games. They said the same thing. They finished strong, really strong. Going 4-1 their last 5 games of the season. So they said they finished 6-5-1. Do apologize, they had the tie against the Lions. Good enough for 3rd place. And that was always the way it was with the Steelers. Always, I mean, they had some good teams. They had some good players. They had some good teams. They had, every now and then they would come up with let's say 60. Had to be 63. I'm going to say. They were 9-4-1. Oh, maybe it was 62. They were 9-5. Okay, yeah, they're 9-5. Right, just not quite good enough. They were always, one way or the other. They said they didn't win their first playoff game ever until 1972 with the Immaculate Reception. So, but Steelers, especially with Bobby Lane there. You got to, and it shows you in this game. You give that guy the ball with a chance to pull out a victory in the final couple minutes of the game. He did the same thing against the Giants. They beat the Giants. The Giants only lost 2 games all season long in the regular season. They had the ball, and I'm going to say with about a minute and a half or so to go in the game, he threw a touchdown pass to Tom Tracy, beat the Giants 14-9 in New York. So Bobby Lane, something special. Something special. All right, so this game here was played at Cleveland Stadium. So let's take a look at the Wikipedia action here in Cleveland Stadium. All right, and zooming on in. Zoom. Cleveland Stadium, commonly known as Municipal Stadium or Cleveland Municipal Stadium. It's a multi-purpose stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. It was one of the early multi-purpose stadiums built to accommodate both baseball and football. Stadium opened in 1931 and is best known as the longtime home of the Cleveland Indians and the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns were there from obviously from 46 to 49. They were in the All-American Football Conference. But you can see they were there for 50 years, 46 to 95, 50 years. And that's what, growing up. I first started remember watching football in 1970. So, the first ever Monday night football game, Cleveland Stadium. And, the players that played in that stadium. And, some not so much when I was watching because, there really weren't many championship games, that were there when I was watching. A lot of the championship games happened in the 50s and the 60s and all, and even in the 40s when they were the All-American Football Conference. As you see right here, the stadium hosted 3 All-American championship games, 6 NFL championship games, so total of 9 championship games altogether. Served as one of the host venues of the 48 and 54 World Series to go along with being a 4-time host of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. It was, of course, it was the site of the original Dog Pound, Red Right 88, and The Drive. And those were not very fond memories, those 2 games for Cleveland Brown fans. Through most of the 10 years, the baseball facility stadium was the largest in Major League Baseball by seating capacity, seating over 78,000 initially and over 74,000 in its final years. Only the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum from 58 to 61, after the Dodgers left Brooklyn in 1957, they moved to Los Angeles in 1958. Well, from 58 to 61, they played in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. In 1959, this particular season, the Dodgers played the White Sox in the World Series, and games 3, 4, and 5 were in Los Angeles. Obviously, they were played in Los Angeles, the Memorial Coliseum, and all 3 games had over 90,000 people. So basically, it was almost 280,000 people saw 3 baseball games, 3 World Series baseball games. I mean, it was just like a sea of people. It was amazing how many people saw the World Series games. Let's see. Of course, somebody I hate, Art Modell, took over control of the stadium from the city. Of course, he wanted to make improvements to the facility, but it continued to decline. Now, all what wound up happening. He wound up moving them out of Cleveland. Did Cleveland try all they could to keep the Browns? I mean, how could you lose the Browns? I mean, after they left, and they managed to come up with another stadium. So why couldn't they do something like that back then? I mean, it just how can you lose the Browns? After 50 seasons, the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's like unbelievable. So in 1995, Modell announced his intentions to move the team to Baltimore. Cleveland Stadium was just falling apart. The impetus of Cleveland Stadium came from the city manager and Cleveland Indians president, who thought that the attraction of a stadium would benefit area commerce in general and their own commercial interest in downtown Cleveland in particular. Let's see. November 1928, Cleveland voters passed a $2.5 million levy for a fireproof stadium on the lakefront. Some people called it the mistake by the lake. And here we go, 1931. Big stadium, double decked and all of that. They were ready for some people, let me tell you what. The stadium was dedicated on July 1st, 1931. On July 3rd, 1931, it hosted a boxing match. Let's say the Indians played their first game there on July 31st, 1932, while attracting a then Major League record crowd of 80,000 people for a baseball game. Wow. I mean, the players that have played there throughout the years, just mind-boggling. And there we go. There's a picture there. You can see there's, tough to see in the background is the lake. Lake Erie is visible, just visible. It's kind of tough to see. View of center field, but you see just double-decked all the way around. And then you got people out here. So it's a lot of people, a lot of people. The facility, located just south of Lake Erie, was known for the biting cold winds that would blow into the stadium in the winter, as well as during much of the spring and fall. Because of its proximity to the lake during the hot summer nights, its lights attracted swarms of bugs. Wow. That's not something you want. All right, the Cleveland Browns, originally members of the All-American Football Conference, began playing at the facility in 1946 and played there through 1995. Had the 3 championship games in the All-American Football Conference. The Browns joined the NFL in 1950 and hosted the championship game at 50, 52, 54, 64, and 68. First Browns game at the stadium was also the first ever All-American Football Conference game when the Browns hosted the Miami Seahawks on September 6, 1946. The Browns won 44-0 and drew over 60,000 fans. Whew. Very, very impressive. Now, of course, you got the Red Wright 88. Brian Sipe threw a pass into the end zone, was intercepted with less than a minute remaining in the game, resulting in a 14-12 loss to the Raiders. Then, of course, 6 years later, in 1986 championship game, John Elway led the drive, which tied the game up, and they went into overtime, and the Broncos won that in overtime. The final game of the stadium was held on December 17, 1995, an emotional 26-10 win over the Bengals. Very, very sad. Of course, Bill Belichick was the coach of the team then, but I don't know why. But Art Modell just picked everything up, moved it, and Belichick wasn't the coach anymore. So I mean, obviously, the Cleveland Rams were there, who became the Los Angeles Rams. 1945 was the 45 championship game was the last game the Cleveland Rams ever played in Cleveland. 1946, they moved out to Los Angeles. So, and you can just see the seating capacity. I mean, just 70, 80,000. It's hold a lot of people. A lot of people. As I said, the players. I mean, the Beatles performed at the stadium. First ever Monday Night Football game. 10-cent beer night. I'm sure that went over pretty well. What do we got here? It was an ill-fated promotion held Major League Baseball Cleveland Indians during a game against the Rangers. Promotion was meant to improve attendance at the game by offering 10 cent. Wow. Due to the rowdiness of the intoxicated fans, the Indians were forced to forfeit the game. Wow, there you go. But I mean, just the absolutely amazing the amount of the games that were played there. Just a shame. Some stadiums can be saved, and I guess it was just that one just fell apart, and shame. So let's I got some pictures here, and I got a picture of the program for this one particular game. There it is, right there. All right. Browns versus the Steelers. November 22nd, 1959, Cleveland Stadium. There it is. And there's Bobby Lane. Let's see here we got. All right, here we go. Of course, you can't talk about the Browns without talking about the man. Week prior to this game, or the last video I just did, Jim Brown played, and the Browns played against the Colts, and Jim Brown scored 5 touchdowns. There's a picture right here, right? As you can see, see the Right, so it was the infield is right here. Go. All right, so the football field obviously ran that way. There's another picture here. This is This is probably from the 80s, but you can see in the background Lake Erie. There we go. Here's a nice shot. I guess the shot was bigger, but you can see in the background here, right? What do we got here? Let's see. How's this picture? There you go. Okay, so we got it back here, right? But you can just see, I mean, it was always, I mean, the Browns always drew so well, always. Really, I mean, it wasn't, and maybe a couple bad seasons in the 70s, but then San Mitigliano kind of got there and they started really turning around. And with Schottenheimer there, I mean, they were, the mid to late 80s, they were good. So they started getting a little bit bad. They had a couple bad seasons in the 90s, and that's when they wound up going. But basically, that wasn't the reason why Mordell moved them. It was just, it is what it is. I mean, sometimes you got, there you go. So, I mean, when you see all the other play, and now obviously it wasn't, had nothing to do with the amount of fans. Because when you sell out and you're selling out, you got 70,000, 80,000 fans there. You can't complain about that. But after a while, it just started falling apart. Here we go. This is it's got here the Cleveland Browns 1959 season recap. Otto Graham was not part of them. One of the problems that they had was where Paul Brown had was that after the Otto Graham retired after the 55 season, he was always looking for that. Good luck, right? He was always looking for that next Otto Graham. He never. I mean, he had Frank Milplum, he had Frank Ryan, he had a couple nice quarterbacks, but no, there was no Otto Graham. No Otto Graham. Like I said, you can't, can't talk about, obviously, without talking about Jim Brown, one of the greatest rushers of all time. Yeah, you can easily say the greatest rusher of all time. Now, the Giants and Browns had some really, really good football games. Here's a picture of the 59 squad. Now, obviously there's only, now they might have an extra guy in here or so, whatever. I don't know. I didn't count, but there's only 36 players on the team. Unlike they got the 53-man roster nowadays, but you only could dress 46, but still that's 10 more players than they had back then. And I think, if I remember reading, I think in 1958, I think they only had 35 guys on a roster. So you'll notice, I mean, Bobby Lane was the field goal kicker for the Steelers. So you had guys, had to play multiple hats. I mean, like Norm Van Brocklin, the Hall of Fame quarterback for the Eagles. Well, he was their punter. Bobby Lane was the field goal kicker. Obviously it was time. I mean, there's a ton of them. But I mean, like Paul Hornung was the field goal kicker for the Packers when he got kicked out of the league for a spell. Jerry Kramer, their guard, became their field goal kicker. So I wear multiple hats. There weren't any like specialists. I'm just a long snapper. I'm just a punter. I only kick off. Ain't none of that back then. Yeah, you put a uniform on. Guess what, buddy? You're gonna be playing one way or the other. All right, so what's the word on the street here? We got a little bit of pregame action here. Where are we going here? Where are we going? November 22nd, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Sun-Telegraph. Pittsburgh. There we go. All right. Steelers try to slug way back. Oh, let's see here. Eight weeks ago, the Steelers put the slug on the Browns, and everybody thought, off the result, that they would be the team to beat in the Eastern Conference this season. However, things didn't pan out that way, and the Steelers today are faced with the task of putting another slug on the same Browns to stay alive mathematically. Instead of making hay with a schedule practically made for them following the 17-7 upending of the Browns, the Steelers promptly settled down to a life of ease and dropped 2 straight games to the Redskins and the Eagles. Now, losing to the Eagles, well, it certainly was not a horrible thing, but they lost to the Redskins. Oh, my God. Redskins were not a good football team. After getting in the rut, the Steelers continued haphazardly until last Sunday when they got back on the main road by smashing the Giants 14-9. Now, as I said, that was 9-7 with about a minute and a half to go. And the Steelers were getting close to field goal range. They only needed a field goal to win that game. But Bobby Lane hit Tom Tracy with, it was like a 44-yard touchdown pass, 45-yard touchdown pass, and the Steelers won 14-9. One of only 2 losses the Giants had all season long during the regular season. While the Steelers frittered, the Browns improved until now. Thanks to the Steelers, they are tied with the Giants for first place in the East with a 6-2 standing. Now, the Steelers, 3-4-1, are in a rather rough spot. They have to handle the Browns in the stadium this afternoon or kiss off the season and shoot for another third-place finish. What makes for the tough assignment is that the Browns are about twice as good as they were when the Steelers dropped them cold in the league opener at Forbes Field. Then Coach Paul Brown could count on only one solid back, fullback Jimmy Brown, who was about as solid as a human can get. At the time, Coach Brown was having quarterback trouble. He wasn't satisfied with Mel Plum and Jim Nanowski. He wasn't satisfied with Mel Plum, and Jim Nanowski couldn't fill the bill either. And Bobby Mitchell, his fleet outside runner, was fresh out of the Army and hadn't lost his GI bunions. In the interim, Brown somehow, perhaps with the aid of a little black magic, made all of the bugs disappear until he has Plum sticking his finger in the pie, but good. Mitchell running with the reckless abandon of a man trying to evade his mother-in-law, and Brown playing as solidly as a coach could wish. No wonder with a triple threat such as that facing them, the Steelers are 8.5-point underdogs. But that could be an overlay, considering how the Steelers mangled the Giants. In that game, the Steelers linebackers and secondary backs threw back everything the Giants tried. Another such performance today could and possibly would rattle the Browns' smooth operating offense to a point where it would only sputter occasionally and not score too often. It would then be up to Bobby Lane, with the same help from the offensive line as he got last week, to collect his pitching arm and hit Jimmy Orr, Ray Matthews, Darrell Brewster, and Tom Tracy with TD passes. All that probably is wishful thinking, but it isn't impossible. The Steelers did it 8 weeks ago, so why not today and in front of some 60,000 fans too? All right, now we got the Pittsburgh Press. November 22nd, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Press. All right, what do we got here? Steelers face rugged task at Cleveland. All right, let's see here. 65,000 may see Parkerman try to slow Brown's title drive. The Steelers will play to a second straight crowd of more than 65,000 tomorrow when Coach Buddy Parker's crew, hoping it is back on the winning trail, faces the Cleveland Browns at Municipal Stadium here. The advanced sale for the game, matching Cleveland tied for National Football League's Eastern Division lead against the team which put them there, indicates one of the largest crowds of the year for the Browns. Only a sudden break in the weather will hold attendance below expectations. The bonanza for Pittsburgh started last week when 67,000 fans jammed Yankee Stadium in New York to see the Steelers defeat the Giants 14-9. Undoubtedly, the Rooney men will have more trouble matching that performance against the Browns tomorrow. Even though quarterback Bobby Lane is at his best when the crowd is largest, the Browns are regarded as having too many guns for the Steelers. The sudden emergence of halfback Bobby Mitchell, as the back Coach Paul Brown has expected him to be, puts a new threat in the Cleveland attack. It now means that the Steelers must face up to Mitchell's outside running as well as fullback Jimmy Brown's blast up to the inside. 2, quarterback Milt Plum is confident soaring because of a 5-game winning streak. Is said to be hitting his receivers with deadly accuracy. Plum, the former Penn State star, has had some of his finest days against the Steelers. To counter the 3-way threat of the Browns, Parker has been installing several new defensive wrinkles this week in an effort to minimize the damage Cleveland's potent offense can wreak. Once again, he will go with Joe Krupa or Krupa, I'm not sure, and Ernie Stoutner as his tackles. Leaving the end post to George Tarasovic and Billy Ray Smith. Tarasovic, the big 6'4", 250-pound wingman, has been having his finest season as a pro, and Smith, a terror at rushing the passer, is finally rounding into shape after missing the first 6 games as a result of a knee injury. Cleveland's sudden improvement has been attributed in most quarters to the work of Brown, Mitchell, and Plum, but there is a minority insisting that the return of 260-pound Mike McCormack, possibly the league's finest offensive tackle and future Hall of Famer, is the key to the sudden life in the Browns or the Brownie running game. McCormack has been a tremendous blocker, particularly on wide plays where he pulls out in front of Brown or Mitchell to throw the key block to spring this pair loose. Unless the Steelers can handle McCormack today, it is likely they will go down as the Browns' 6th straight victim. Offensively, Parker plans no drastic changes in his attack. Once again, it will be Tom the Bomb Tracy at fullback, with Tom Barnett as the running half. Ray Matthews and Buddy Dial will share the flanker role. Today's meeting is the third between the two rivals. There is a theory that it is extremely difficult to win all 3 games in the series. That theory has been proved time and again, but in a few of those cases has the 2-time loser been of the Browns' caliber. It's rare when a team whips Cleveland 3 times in a decade, to say nothing of a single season. And there's the right. And that's the way it's going to all work out. The Giants will be in first place. The Cleveland will be tied with Philadelphia at the end of the season, and Pittsburgh will be in third place. Cardinals will be in last place, and Washington will be in 5th place. Steelers are on TV. There you go. Channels 2, 7, 9, and 10. It's on 4 different stations. We'll televise today's Steelers-Brown game. Wow. And there's the teams. All right. And we got here. The Plain Dealer, November 22nd, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. What do they got to say? Let me refresh the page so it doesn't screw up on me here. All right, here we go. Browns bid for 6th in a row today. Here we go. Little Brownies at League Park yesterday, helping their dads get ready for today's game with the Steelers. Oh. Let's see, must have missed the... That streak is red hot Browns. Paul Brown is known in pro football circles as a streak coach. More than any other tutor, he has been able to keep teams on even keel and in winning streaks. Since the Browns moved into the National Football League 10 years ago, they have had victories of 4 or better 8 times in regular season play. They rolled for 11 in 1951 after an opening loss to San Francisco and piled up 11 more before a closing defeat in 1953. There was a stretch of 8 victories in 54, 6 in 55, and 5 at the start of last season. Except for last year, those were campaigns that produced division or world championships. 60,000 expected to see the game. The Browns go against the Pittsburgh Steelers at the stadium this afternoon, with some 60,000 fans expected, gunning for a 6th straight victory, and they are tied with the New York Giants for first place in the Eastern Division. Brown admits no particular formula for this unique ability to keep a football team in high gear in a league noted for upsets. He doesn't believe in locker room histrionics, and seldom, if ever, gives a pregame oration. He doesn't think it's necessary at any time, and particularly in the present situation. This is a group of men, all right, let me, one more. Right there. This is a group of men, he said yesterday. They know what that championship means. They don't need any pep talk. Part of Brown's secret may be that he uses the exhibitions for testing and brings the team along slowly. He likes to win in preseason play, but doesn't want to pay for it by having a veteran run out of gas in midseason. He never scrimmages once. The first exhibition has been played and gives the players Monday and Tuesday off each week of the regular season. There you go. During the 3 days of fairly extended drills, there is complete concentration on football. With a needle here and a pat on the back there, he usually has the club mentally ready for the kickoff. This afternoon, both the Browns and Steelers will also be physically ready for this second clash of the season. Pittsburgh took the opener at Forbes Field by a 17-7 count. The Browns all appeared healthy as they loosened up for 20 minutes yesterday at League Park. Buddy Parker brought his team in by bus, and the Steelers did some running at the stadium. Tom Barnett, rookie halfback from Alliance O, who has been a starter, has a slight leg muscle pull, but Barty believes he will play. That Steeler backfield also will include Bobby Lane at quarterback, Tom Tracy at fullback, and the veteran Ray Matthews as a flanker. Darryl Pete Brewster, who was with the Browns last season, probably won't start for Pittsburgh. While Pete has sidelined with a sprained ankle, Gern Nagler took over the left end spot. The visiting cast will be much the same as the one that topped the Browns 2 months ago. One newcomer slated for action is Don Sutherland, former Ohio State star, who will be at the safety spot. And once again, here's the starters, offensive starters, and the rest of the team. All right, then I got, let's see here, one more. Pop it up here. Okay, we got it's the Cleveland News. The Cleveland News. November 21st, 1959 edition of the Cleveland News. Up the plum to losing the Steelers' tight defense. It will be a pressure-packed stadium tomorrow as the Browns meet the Steelers, with the big pressure on the Browns. The Browns have never been satisfied with anything less than a championship. Making a good showing is never good enough. And with the schedule going into its final third, the Browns, although tied for first place with the Giants, they face a must-win situation every game. Tomorrow, the pressure is extra heavy. Nobody, said Paul Brown today, realizes how strong a defense that team has. He recalled that the Browns didn't do anything on offense when the teams met in the season opener in Pittsburgh. What did we make? 1 touchdown? We had another chance to score and piddled it away, he said. The Steelers did a comprehensive job against the Browns running that night. The Browns outgained them on the ground, but never did either Jim Brown or Bobby Mitchell break out for a long game. Every time they stuck a helmet behind the line of scrimmage, the Steelers gang tackled them down. The Browns can look for similar toughness up front against the running game. It has always been a characteristic of the Steelers 11, even with different coaches. The Browns are hopeful, however, that this time they can loosen it up with Milt Plum's passing. Milt has come a long way since that game 9 weeks ago, and it doesn't take much more than a good long pass that connects to take some of the tightness out of the front line. Offense, however, isn't the Browns' only problem against the Steelers. They will be facing Bobby Lane, a tough competitor with poise and savvy, who may not be the best passer in the league, but isn't new, but who long has rated the best clutch situation quarterback in the game, and he would prove it again in this game. In that first game, Lane threw 2 touchdown passes and kicked the field goal. The quarterback, the future Hall of Fame quarterback, was the quarterback and the field goal kicker. And he also kept the ball for several good gains on runs. Handling Lane is definitely one of the tomorrow's must for the Browns. All right, so what happened during the game here? All right, so we're going to go to the Plain Dealer. November 23rd, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. All right, what do we got? Browns fall in last minute, 21-20. And there it is. There's Bobby Lane with his magical arm. And they all drank Coca-Cola after the game. See? Bottle of Coke. Winning combination, Pittsburgh and Gern Nagler holds Bobby Lane's arm, which drew him the 17-yard winning touchdown pass. Fullback Tom the Bomb Tracy, and halfback Tom Barnett in the rear joined in the locker room celebration. Yep, there you go. All right. Steelers sink Cleveland 1 game behind. Browns couldn't hold a 6-point lead through the final 2 minutes yesterday at the stadium and now find themselves in real trouble. That 21-20 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers dropped Cleveland in second place tie with the Eagles and a game off the pace of the New York Giants in the Eastern Division. Coming in for the final home game next Sunday will be the San Francisco 49ers. They are fighting for their lives in the National Football League's Western Conference after 2 straight losses. Following the 49ers appearance, the Browns end up on the road against the Giants and then the Eagles. So if they regain the division crown now, it will take a mighty finish. The defeat by the Steelers, which snapped a 5-game winning streak and left Paul Brown's team with a 6-3 record, was particularly hard to take. Third of Ray Renfro's 3 brilliant pass catches for touchdowns put Cleveland ahead for the first time with 6.5 minutes left. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Browns take a 20-14 lead. Gives Browns lead. Ray Renfro awaits Bill Plum's 50-yard aerial to complete a 70-yard scoring play to put Cleveland ahead for the first time with 6.5 minutes remaining. But, if we come down to the picture down here, Junior Wren tackles Gern Nagler, but white-shirted Steeler has taken a 17-yard scoring pass from Bobby Lane, who then booted the winning point in the last 40 seconds. It was only a 6-point margin because Lou Groza was wide on an extra point try from placement after Renfro's first touchdown in the second quarter. The bulge seemed enough, though, when the defense held for downs and the Browns maintained possession until the 2-minute warning. The Rabbits' first grab for 6 points was on a 32-yard play with time running out in the second quarter. His other 2 came on haymakers of 27 and 70 yards during the tremendously exciting final 15 minutes. Mill Plum was on the firing end of the 3 touchdown passes, and the combination almost pulled out the victory with the final seconds ticking off. Ray again got behind Dick Allman, his favorite victim of the bright afternoon, but couldn't hold on to the football at the Pittsburgh 20. It was almost too much in the way of heroics to expect from the speedy Texan, who totaled 5 catches for 161 yards in one of the finest pro showings. Villain or hero to the responsive throng of 68,563, depending on rooting interest, was another Texas gentleman. One Bobby Lane, a 32-year-old veteran of 12 pro seasons, passed down the middle to Gurr Nagler for 17 yards and the third Steeler touchdown with 40 seconds showing on the board. Then Blonde Bobby, who had engineered the 83-yard push aided by 2 breaks in 1 minute and 20 seconds, coolly kicked his third extra point. The Browns, who lost the game but certainly won many new friends with their spirited comeback, made a great bid to beat the clock. After Renfro and Plum missed connections, Cleveland moved to the Pittsburgh 42 for a desperation field goal bid. Groza missed the 49-yard try, and Pittsburgh had its second victory of the season over Cleveland. Lou failed 2 other attempts from distances of 47 and 48 yards. As often as the case when things have gone smoothly through a streak like the Browns' 5-victory scheme, the end comes on a day when you can't get a break. Mike McCormick, big offensive tackle and captain, went out on the second play of the game with a damaged shoulder and never returned. And the Steelers had help the second quarter as they moved to a pair of touchdowns. Tom Tracy, the bouncing fullback, scored both on blasts of 4 yards and 1 yard. Pittsburgh traveled 96 yards to that first touchdown, but wouldn't have been underway without 2 unusual, I'm going to say, developments. So let's go to the next page here. The plain dealer. Developments. The Browns had contained the visitors for 3 downs at the 10, and Bobby Luna had punted. An alert official called a holding infraction on the Browns, so Lane and company had a first down. Again, the attack was held short of the first down, and Luna once more tried to punt. The football came back from the center on the ground, and Luna was forced to run, so he came up with 10 yards and the first down. From there on in, the Steelers earned their yardage to the end zone. Big play was a leaping catch by Jimmy Orr, who gathered in Ray Matthews' pass on the Cleveland 6. He was covered by both Junior Wren and Jim Schaffner, but somehow came down with the football on the 39-yard gain. There was no luck involved as the Steelers, supported by a vocal contingent from Pennsylvania, pushed 72 yards to the second Tracy score. There was a big catch, though, by Nagler, a Cardinal cast-off for a 19-yard gain to the Cleveland 12. Tom the Bomb Tracy went in from the 1 on 4th down. Dame Fortune was with the Steelers as they moved in for the fourth quarter kill, too. On the first play, starting from the 17, Lane hit Orr, who took 4 passes for 86 yards on a possession effort, good for the first down. It was a roughing the passer penalty called against the Browns on the same play that put the football out to the Pittsburgh 47 and gave the Steelers new hope. Seconds later came another break when Orr fumbled after taking a 19-yard pass from Lane. Matthews beat a nearby Brown to the ball, but the aerial might have been called incomplete. 3 plays later, Bobby connected to Nagler right under the goalpost for the touchdown. The Browns, perhaps dulled by their role of favorite or heavy praise heaped last week on their 3-pronged offense, showed little attack until late in the second quarter. Then, after spotting Pittsburgh 14 points, they got 6 back in the last 3 minutes of the half. Jim Brown, who wound up with 111 yards on 15 tries, sparked the 80-yard drive. He opened it by going up the middle for 6 yards and then displaying that secondary effort for which he is justly famous, ripped loose for 40 yards and a first down on the Steelers' 34. The fullback seemed to be stopped after short yards, but somehow whirled away. 2 plays took the ball to the 32, and Renfro began his victimizing of Allman. Groza seemed to get under the extra point try, and the ball went high and to the left. So it was 14-6 Pittsburgh at the half. And things didn't get better until the final quarter. Lane, proving he is also a human, had a 31-yard field goal try blocked in the third period, and Groza fell with one of 47. Those were the only threats of the session. Early in the final period, the Browns took over on their 26 to begin one of the most exciting quarters in team's history. Plum, who connected on 17 of 29 passes with 269 yards and the 3 Renfro touchdowns, hit Billy Houghton for a 31-yard gain. That carried to the Steelers' 43. But the next play broke down, and the Browns were back on their 46. Preston Carpenter took a pass and drove to the Pittsburgh 41. Then Plum tossed a short one to Jim Brown, who refused to come down short of the first down. Bobby Mitchell contained to a net 15 yards and 7 tries, carried to the 27. On the next play, Renfro took Plum's pass on the 5 and went into the corner of the end zone. Groza conversion left Cleveland a point short, but the Browns had another touchdown 3 minutes later. Renfro, with Steelers still trying to cover him one-on-one, got free and took Plum's arching aerial on the Pittsburgh 26, going full steam. That was the 70-yard play. It was a happy moment for the Browns rooters in the season's biggest turnout, but there was over 6 minutes left. That spoil sport, Bobby Lane, was still in the ballpark, and he was ready for another of his famed clutch performances. Yep. Oh, yeah. All right, what do we got now? So we're going to go to the Cleveland Press. November 23rd, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Press. What do they got to say? If you hear something snoring, that's my dog Randy. He had a rough day, so shh, keep it down. He's tired. All right, here we go. A lot here. Whew. Let me refresh this here. All right, with no Brown near him, and Gern Nagler, the Steelers gathers in a 17-yard pass from Bobby Lane on the goal line. The touchdown tied the score at 20. Less than a minute to play. Linebacker Vince Costello of the Browns watches unhappily. And here it is. There's point of no return. Sailing between the uprights is a conversion that gave the Pittsburgh Steelers their precious point in a 21-20 victory over the Browns. Lane connected on a kick despite the frenzied effort of Browns Bob Kane, number 79, Sid Yogelman, 72, Bernie Parrish, 30. You just see Bernie Parrish here, look, flying in the air. Look at him. He's laying on the top up here. All right. And you see there's the crossbar, right? And there's the ball. Right. All right, let's see. Browns' future looks black. The Browns are back in trouble, and this time it's really deep trouble. One more misstep, and it's almost a certain curtain for the Cleveland's title hopes in the National Football League race. Their 5-week struggle to overtake first place New York wiped out by one mighty effort on the part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Browns now face a grim outlook approaching the last 3 weekends of the season. Pittsburgh, which did the Browns a favor by beating the Giants last week, yesterday returned to Eastern Conference standing to the way that they've been most of the season by spoiling the day for a majority of the 68,563 fans at the stadium with a last-minute 21-20 decision. The loss shoved the Browns back into a second-place tie with Philadelphia, and the position is all the more precarious because of a closing series of head-to-head encounters with three other hot contenders. The Giants, on the other hand, had the benefit of a two-game set with the fifth-place Redskins. Cleveland's last-ditch fight starts Sunday at the stadium against San Francisco 49ers, themselves in a do-or-die situation after having a two-game lead in the Western Conference erased by defending champion Baltimore. Then comes a long-awaited return match with the Giants at Yankee Stadium, followed by an encore with the Eagles in Philadelphia. The Browns gained 387 yards, more than two-thirds of it in a stirring last half yesterday. But in the end, several things Cleveland narrowly missed overshadowed its accomplishments. A muff conversion kick by Luke Rosa caused a tie, and a drop pass by Ray Renfro cost the victory. The Browns, however, wouldn't have been within shouting distance of the Steelers in the closing seconds without Renfro. Quarterback Milt Plum and Renfro enjoying one of the finest days accounted for all of the Browns scoring with touchdown pass plays of 32, 27, and 70 yards. All told, Renfro grabbed 5 for 161 yards, and Plum completed 17 of 29 passes for 269 yards. The one Renfro couldn't hold was a 60-yarder over the Steelers' secondary with 20 seconds left in the game. Two sideline passes advanced the ball to within rocket range for a field goal attempt, but Gross's 49-yard kick was wide to the left. Lou also missed on a pair of 48-yarders earlier in the game. Renfro was the hero of the day until quarterback Bobby Lane got his talented hands on the ball with 1 minute 51 seconds left and moved the Steelers 82 yards in 70 seconds. The clincher was a 17-yard toss to Garnagler beneath the goalpost, after which Lane kicked his third extra point. This was our best all-around game, especially on offense, said Pittsburgh coach Buddy Parker. That Lane is something, isn't he? He's the greatest when there are only a few minutes left. That's the truth, man. Steelers didn't look like a team with the poorest rushing record in the league as they punched out touchdown drives of 84 and 72 yards in the first half. Fullback Tom Tracy scored both times on a short burst through the line. Pittsburgh controlled the ball so well and so long in the first half that the Browns got off only 17 plays until the closing minutes of the second quarter. Then the Browns ripped 80 yards in 50 seconds with a 40-yard dash by Brown, setting up Plum's first strike to Renfro. There we go. Play of the day. Here is the 70-yard scoring pass from Milt Plum to Ray Renfro that put the Browns ahead 20-14 in the fourth quarter. Renfro went 15 yards downfield and rainbowed to the center of the field. He took the pass on the 25 and scored. Right halfback Dick Allman was left behind after attempting single coverage on Renfro. Preston Carpenter went 10 yards downfield and cut right. Billy Hout went 5 yards and cut left. There you go. Boom. Deep. What we got? 1, 2. So we had 7 guys in there. Plum drops back. Brown went to the right to block. Mitchell went over to the left to block. 5 guys up front. So had 7 guys in. Only a three-man route. Renfro took the deep pass right over the middle. It was inevitable that Luke Rosa would be the topic of many mumbled conversations as the huge crowd filed out of the stadium after a tremendous football game. Rosa had missed a point after touchdown and 3 field goal tries, the last from the 49 on the final play of the game. The Steelers won a big one by the narrowest possible margin, 21-20, so you get the idea. He has lost the snap he once had, was the gist of the conversations on the ramps. I keep looking for him every week among the top 10 scorers, and he isn't there, said the Steeler public relations man. I'm afraid those days are over as far as the long one is concerned, said Coach Paul Brown, when told that Coach Buddy Parker had a feeling that Groza would connect on the last-second effort. Sooner or later, of course, these things were going to be said. Gallant Groza is 35 years old. Golfers lose that little zing from their swing. Baseball pitchers lose a little from their fastball, and it is entirely possible that Lou has lost just enough from his leg drive. I never kicked a field goal in my life, so I don't know exactly what happens. I suppose it's something that when Joe Louis had to say as he neared the end of the trail. I see the openings, I start to punch, but it just doesn't get there the way it used to, said the Brown bomber. Rosa has done so much for the Browns and Cleveland football fans, he doesn't have to hang his head. Neither does Renfro. Even though Ray failed to snag a long pass in the last 30 seconds, which could have turned dreary defeat into dazzling victory. Renfro caught 3 TD passes before that, and I submit this is a pretty good afternoon's work at the football factory. The miss, which really bothered Groza, was the point after the first touchdown. It squirted off the side of his foot to the left, and it cost the Browns a tie. As he came off the field, it was apparent that he gladly would have put on a hair shirt. Nobody among the 68,000 felt as badly as he did. There was a time when Groza could kick these with one foot tied behind him and blindfolded. It's too bad, but there's a place ready for Groza and a big one in Pro Football's Hall of Fame when the time comes. I'm certainly not going to be the first to say it here. Bob Gain and Mill Plum were field goal kickers, but I doubt that they could give the Browns a greater threat than the old master. He will go on drawing a bead on the crossbar for the remainder of the season, and he may kick the big one yet. Regardless of the outcome, few more exciting football games have ever been played at the stadium, and it is noteworthy that Plum destroyed another illusion about his passing. Yesterday, he was the long ball hitter, and with 3 to Renfro, and he threw the last one about 60 yards. The one Renfro failed to hold was thrown about the same distance. It was thrown accurately in the slot after Renfro had beaten 3 Steelers backs on the play. The difficulty in this game was that it took so long for the newfound offense of the Browns to start rolling. They did little or nothing in the first half for the simple reason that the Steelers had the ball much of the time. This was due, I thought, to the superb quarterbacking of Bobby Lane, who has so much imagination. I keep wondering why it is he isn't able to talk the cops out of a traffic ticket. On at least 3 third down and short yardage situations, Lane outguessed the defense of the Browns. He flipped out, he ran Tom Barnett wide, and he threw a short pass to achieve possession, first downs. The Browns seemed to be looking for Tom Tracy into the line each time. I'm not taking a thing away from the Steelers when I say that the pattern of the game was cut to the measure, including a roughing the passer penalty, which helped them greatly in their winning drive. This was regrettable, and there were some who wondered why the Browns were not more cautious in this situation. Pro football is an intense game, and it is difficult to be intense and cautious at the same time. All right, what do we got here? The Pittsburgh Press. Oh, well, let's see here. We'll go to Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. How's that? November 23rd, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. All right, what do they got here? Okay. Oh, let me refresh the page here. Here it is. Here we go. Last minute, Lane deflates Browns 21-20. What do we got here? Off and running. Quarterback Bobby Lane and the Steelers crosses up the Browns defense on a 9-yard gain in the first quarter of yesterday's game at Cleveland. 3 Brownies, who seem to be having some trouble bringing him down, are Bernie Parrish, 30, already on the ground, Paul Wiggin, 84, whose helmet appears off the figure 2 on the back of Lane's jersey, and Galen Fisk, number 35, kicking up turf at midfield. There you go. Oh, yeah, my good boy Randy. He's snoring up a storm, ain't he? Bobby Lane provided another Frank Merriwell finish for the underdog Pittsburgh Steelers here this afternoon against the Cleveland Browns in a vast municipal stadium. There were only 40 seconds remaining when the blonde Texan tossed a 17-yard TD pass to end Gern Nagler. The Chicago Cardinal cast off to tie up a bitter battle. Then versatile Bobby booted the extra point, which nipped the Ohioans 21-20 before a tremendous crowd, the biggest to ever watch these pro rivals play here. Some 10,000 faithful rooters of Rooney U had to sweat out a 49-yard field goal try by Lou the Toad Rosa on the final play of the game, but it failed as it did two earlier tries, plus the first extra point attempt, which enabled the gold and black to take the honors by a single point. Lane had whipped the New York Giants a week ago in Yankee Stadium with a 45-yard pass to Tom the Bomb Tracy with only 1 minute, 29 seconds left to go. And I said, it's just some guys, it's just you give them the ball and, hey, Bob, you got 2, 3, 4 minutes left to go. You score a touchdown in this drive, we win. And the man was good. The man was good. He was a winner. His late heroics today enabled the Maramen, victorious over the Chicago Cardinals, to take sole possession of the first place in the Eastern Conference with the 6-2 record, while the Brownies are the 7-2 record. The Brownies are 6-3. The Steelers are now 4-1. Lane's game-winning toss at the very end overshadowed a great performance by Mill Plum, young Brownie quarterback from Penn State, who seemed certain to get a bit of the revenge over Pittsburgh for Richie Lucas' failure the previous day in Pitt Stadium. Plum passed to end Ray Renfro for 3 TDs on 32, 27, and 70-yard completions and found the mark on 17 of 29 passes for 269 yards. But like rollout Richie, he wound up with a loser. Lane's log showed 12 of 20 and 126 yards. Tom the Bomb Tracy, Bobby's old sidekick from the Detroit Lions, smashed across for the 2 early Steeler TDs, which brought the gold and black a 14-0 lead in the second quarter. He carried 24 times for 99 yards, second only to the league-leading Jim Brown of the Losers with 111 yards on 15 rushes. Bobby Mitchell, the highly touted outside man, only got past the Steeler defense for 15 yards on 7 shots. Of course, the final result settled on Lane's 3 conversions to 2 out of 3 for the veteran Groza, now in the twilight of a great career. Bobby, of course, seems destined to go on forever. He did have a 31-yard field goal try blocked in comparison with Lou's trio of long-distance failures. The triumph meant a clean sweep of 3 games, won on an exhibition, but the Steelers over their old nemesis and coach Buddy Parker, who shies from the unlucky number 13, now has a lifetime record of 13 wins, 6 setbacks, and 1 tie. All right, let's go to the page 30 of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. All right, there we go. One tie against Coach Paul Brown of the Losers. Let me, here we are. I'm back. There we go. What do we got here? Total first down. Steelers at 21 total first downs. Browns only at 16. Steelers 182 yards rushing. Wow. So they outgained Jim Brown and Bobby Mitchell. Wow. 182 to 126. But with the passing, the Browns had the overall edge. Let's see here. Nobody threw any interceptions. Well, let's see. No turnovers. The Steelers fumbled twice. Tell you what, the Browns would hardly fumble at all during the 59 season. It was amazing. What we got here? See, Barnett got 50 yards. Lane ran for 19. 99 right there. So, all right, let's see. What do we got here? En route to their thrilling triumph, the Steelers led in first downs by 21-16. Their reputed weak running attack rushed for 182 yards to 126, but they trailed on passing yards 261 to 156. And of course, they were best by 1 point on the scoreboard. The Browns gained the game's first scoring chance after receiving the opening kickoff. They rolled for 2 first downs, then faltered, so Groza tried a 48-yard field goal at 3:15. It was far wide to the right. The second time the Steelers got the pigskin, they marched 94 yards for a TD, which came with 45 seconds gone in the second stanza on a 4-yard drive by Tracy. The long parade required 16 plays plus a timely penalty. The Browns committed defensive holding when Luna punted on 4th down from his own 11. The boys in the striped shirts called the play off and gave the visitors a valuable first down on the 16. Another break came in the next series of downs. Again, Luna went back to punt from his 24, but he dropped the pass from center, so Bobby took off around his own right end to the 35 for a first down. A third important play was a great catch of a 38-yard pass by Orr, who nabbed the ball with Wren and Schaffner hanging all over him on the Cleveland 6. Matthews had thrown the ball after starting around his own left end as if to sweep the wing. Tracy rammed over from the 4 on the second play of the second period, and Lane converted for a 7-0 lead. Next time they got the leather, the gold and black. Okay. Marched 72 yards in 17 plays for another TD on Tracy's 1-yard plunge. 1-yard 4th down plunge. Lane converted at the 12-minute mark, and Pittsburgh led 14-0. Southern kicked off into the end zone, but the Browns ate up 80 yards and 5 tries for a TD. Brown ran 40 yards for a big gainer, with Derby hauling him down from behind on the Steelers' 26. The payoff was a 32-yard pass from Plum to going on up to Renfro at the 13:50 mark, but Groza's extra point try veered to the left at the uprights, so the Parker men went to their dressing rooms with a 14-6 lead. Browns block a field goal. Both teams failed on field goal tries in the scoreless third quarter. Lane booted for the Steelers from the Cleveland 31, but Wigan blocked it. In the closing minutes, Groza got his second try from 48 yards out, but it was wide to the left. Plum pitched the losers into the lead with a couple of perfect TD passes as the Brownies roared from behind in the final period. He hit Renfro for 27 yards at the 5-minute mark and found the same receiver on a tremendous heave, good for 70 yards overall at 8:35. Groza converted both times, so the home side was ahead 20-14. But all was not lost. Steeler hopes faded when they couldn't get anywhere after the ensuing kickoff. But they got possession again with 2 minutes to go deep in their own territory when Southern had to make a fair catch on Schaffner's best punt of the day on the Pittsburgh 17. Here's how the winning splurge went play by play. Lane passed to Orr for 15 yards. Cleveland was also penalized 15 yards for roughing Bobby Lane on the play, so 30 yards. So they went from the 17 out to the 47 on one play. Pass to Matthews was incomplete. Lane hurled up the middle to Orr for 19 yards. Jimmy fumbled, but Matthews dropped on the ball on the Brownies' 33. Tracy rammed up the middle down to the 17. Lane handed off to Tracy, who threw a lateral to Lane, but Bobby made only 1 yard at right end. Lane passed to Nagler under the goalpost for the TD. Dawson held, and Lane converted for a 21-20 lead. Plum passed the losers into position for a desperation 49-yard field goal try by Groza, but it was harmless to the left as the game ended. So Rooney U rooters uprooted the west side goalpost and carried them off in triumph. Oh, my goodness. You got to love it. Let's see here. All right, so let's All right, let's go back here. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Let's go back here to where we at here. All right. Real fast there. Let's see if I can read this here real fast. Find page 28. Where we at here? All right, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Let's go back to the same page I was just reading about 5 minutes ago. Pittsburgh's big league football teams aren't going anywhere in particular, but they've been darned if they'll let the good ones get any place either. Johnny Michael Lewson's comeback. Pitt Panthers set the pattern Saturday by upending bowl-bound Penn State. Today, it was Buddy Parker's Steelers roared from behind to sidetrack the ambitious Browns 21-20. The Steelers, led by the redoubtable Bobby Lane, scored with only 49 seconds left to triumph. What the paying fans will recall for years to come as one of the most exciting games they'll ever witness. A lane pass to Garnagler, another cast-off Parker picked up from the Chicago Cardinals last year, brought the Steelers from a 14-20 deficit to a 21-20 victory. The heave, a pot shot under the goalpost, carried 17 yards into Nagler's arms, while some 10,000 Pittsburghers present roared approval. The Steel City cheering contingent was led by Pennsylvania's #1 citizen, Governor David L. Lawrence. The governor cast aside dignity for a brief moment in the press box by throwing his hat high in the air and announcing to one and all that was the greatest play of all time. No team deserved victory more than the Steelers today. They clearly outplayed the Browns for more than 55 minutes of a 60-minute contest, jam-packed with hair-raising moments. They jumped off to a 14-0 lead before the Browns can get their bearings and score near the end of the first half, which ended 14-6. Then the embattled Browns, seeking another championship, fought back to 2 more touchdowns in the final quarter to capture the lead at 20-14. All 3 of the touchdown passes were lightning tosses from Milt Plum to speedy Ray Renfro, who outraced the Pittsburgh defenders in each instance. The Plum to Renfro combination almost pulled the game out of the fire in the final seconds when the fast-moving back got his hands on a long heave but just couldn't hold it. He was in the clear, only a few yards from payoff territory when this happened. Cleveland never gave up. The remaining 40 seconds of the game saw them move from their own 20 to the Pittsburgh 41, where Lou the Toe Groza tried to pull defeat out of the fire with a 49-yard field goal attempt. It was away off its mark. The Browns are still looking for an excuse to hang their defeat on today. They can peg it on the one-time great kicking ability of Groza. The grand old veteran of many a Cleveland triumph in the past has lost much of the skill which drew fear into opponents anytime the Browns got past the 50-yard line. Lou the Toe missed 2 other field goals this bright, hot for November afternoon. He also missed the first conversion point, something unheard of in other years. This left the Browns in a precarious position, battling from behind most of the way. Groza's 3 missed field goal tries came from the 48, 49, and 48 yards out. He used to make these with his eyes closed, as the saying goes. This was the difference between victory and defeat for the Browns, who fell a game behind the New York Giants in the torrid Eastern Division race because of the loss to the Steelers. The win was also Parker's 3rd straight over Paul Brown this year, 2 in league play and 1 in exhibition. Aside from their defensive mistakes, which enabled the Browns to score 3 times through the air, the Steelers had trouble with only one Cleveland player, Jimmy Brown. Who else? The big Steeler defensive line, which did yeoman duty all day long, had no trouble stopping Bobby Mitchell, the Browns' will-o'-the-wisp runner. But when it came to Brown, this was something else. Big 32 scampered a total of 111 yards in 15 attempts. His longest run was 40 yards, coming late in the second half. Saw him drive in and out of 5 would-be Steeler tacklers and help set up the Browns' first touchdown. Surprisingly, the Steelers did quite a bit of rushing themselves behind a powerful mobile offensive line. They outgained the Browns 182-126 on the ground, with Tom the Bomb Tracy showing the way with 99 yards. Tracy scored the Steelers' first 2 touchdowns. Buddy Parker's ability to fashion strong football teams out of the cast-offs and retreads was attested once again, and further testimony was needed. Nagler, who was persuaded to come out of retirement by Parker this season, joined Lane, Tracy, and others who have come here to play important roles since Buddy took over at the helm 3 years ago. The ex-Cardinal caught 4 passes today for a total of 63 yards, and his first touchdown as a Steeler was the all-winning one against the Browns. He and the glue-fingered Jimmy Orr teamed up today as the main targets for Lane's heaves. In all, Lane completed 12 out of 20 passes. He even called on Ray Matthews to throw his first pass of the season, and Ray caught the Browns defense down. And continued on page 29. Let's see here. When he hit the mark for 38 yards to set up the first Steeler TD. While the Steelers win further scrambled the Eastern Division and kept their title hopes flickering, only a complete collapse on the part of the Giants, Browns, and Eagles the rest of the way will enable them to reach the top. They're now 4-4-1, and now even if they win the next 3 games, the best they can get out of it is the same satisfaction Pitt did in sweeping aside all opposition in the home stretch. Did we hear somebody say, wait till next year? And that was the way quite often with the Steelers. You know, as I said, I mean, you know, they had some bad seasons. When they came into existence, it actually took them 10 years. You know, their 10th season in the NFL before they actually had a winning record. So, yeah, it took them a little while to get going. They were known as the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1933 to 1939. 1940, I believe it was when they changed the name to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they had it rough in the beginning, no doubt about that. But, you know, even after they got their first winning season, I mean, they had some nice seasons here and there, but they just never could quite put it all together. There was always something happened. And as I said, in 1958 and 1959, you know, they started off the season slowly, lost a bunch of games, and almost took themselves out of contention after the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But you know, like they did in 58, the Steelers would come on at the end of 59 and, you know, wind up with a respectable record of 6-5-1, good for 3rd place. But for the Browns, you know, they would have a winning season. But, yeah, and it would be tied with the Eagles. Both would be 7-5, you know, 3 games out of first place. But for the Browns, you know, as I said, I mean, they were 6-2, 4 games left to go. And for them to lose 3 of their final 4 games, you know, especially these tough one-loss game, they would lose this game 21-20, and then the final week, the next week against the 49ers, they would lose again, once again, 21-20, and pretty much end all hopes of winning the Eastern Division. So that's the way it was on this date, November 22nd, 1959, as the Pittsburgh Steelers went into Cleveland Stadium to take on the Cleveland Browns. Pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.